At the start of the 1920s, Chaplin made the last of his short comedies before embarking definitively on full-length features. In his autobiography, Chaplin recalled that making Sunnyside was like pulling teeth. From time to time, like any artist, Chaplin experienced creative blocks, but this was one of the worst in his career. No doubt one cause was his private life. Late in November 1918, he'd married in haste a 17-year-old actress, Mildred Harris, and immediately regretted it as he found that poor little Mildred was woefully unequal to the job of being wife to a genius. Barely a week after the marriage, he was back at the studio with a plan to put Charlie into a rural setting as they put upon man-of-all work at a seedy country hotel. He took the unit on location to one of the ranches that were still close by in that rural California and hired horses, cows, and several cowboys. But the ideas for comedy did not come. After more than 3 months of idleness and a temporary abandonment of the project, Chaplin suddenly forced himself into a 3-week spurt of energetic activity, after which he was able to complete Sunnyside. It is in fact a more interesting film than Chaplin or his critics ever gave him credit for. The spectacle of Charlie in a rural setting is novel and provides some unexpected gags. Some scenes too have a rather piquant edge of cruelty. One scene is particularly remembered. Charlie, knocked unconscious, dreams that he dances with 4 wood nymphs. This virtuoso performance is clearly a tribute to the ballet L'après-midi d'un faune, created and performed by the great Russian dancer Vaslav Nijinsky. Nijinsky had visited Chaplin's studio, and the two men clearly had a great mutual admiration. Chaplin was understandably flattered when the Russian dancer and his colleagues complimented him on his own dancing skills. A Day's Pleasure unusually shows Chaplin as the respectable father of a family and the proud owner of a Model T Ford. This is another film whose light touch conceals the difficulties of its making. Chaplin started out with the simple idea of the story of the hazards of a family excursion, but at first the shooting went slowly. His marital troubles continued to distract him. They reached a crisis when his wife gave birth to a severely handicapped baby, which died at only 3 days old. Paradoxically, though, Chaplin seemed suddenly inspired. A Day's Pleasure, still known by its working title of Charlie's Picnic, was abandoned and work began feverishly on what was to become his masterpiece, The Kid. Finally, it was the impatience of the distribution company, desperate for a new Chaplin film, which forced him to finish shooting A Day's Pleasure in little more than a week. He rented a pleasure boat, which is the kind of prop that always inspired him, and it was probably the speed at which the film was finally finished that gives it its freshness today. For the very sharp-sighted, there's a glimpse of Jackie Coogan, Chaplin's co-star in The Kid, as one of Charlie's children on the boat. Chaplin was experimenting with new roles for his tramp character. In The Idle Class, he actually plays 2 roles, the tramp and a rich young alcoholic husband. Between them, they represent the idle rich and the idle poor. Everyone in the film is obsessed with America's dominating passion of the time, the game of golf. The action is set in a hotel in Miami, where confusions ensue when the beautiful Edna repeatedly mistakes the surprised but willing tramp for her absent-minded and neglectful alcoholic husband. Payday was Chaplin's last 2-reeler and again casts him in an unfamiliar role as a working man and henpecked husband. It proved one of his most trouble-free productions, and shooting was completed in barely a month. Like his earlier 2-reelers, it is divided into distinct acts. In the first part, he is seen as a workman on a building site, having trouble with bricks, with the tools of his trade, and with an elevator which at least has a convenient habit of delivering other people's food to him. The scene was actually shot on location on a new building in construction close to the studio. The second act shows the workman on a night out and gives Chaplin the possibility for a drunk act of the kind that had brought him fame in the English music halls of his youth. In the finale, he returns home in the small hours of the morning to his virago wife, played by the veteran expert in such roles, Phyllis Allen. The film is particularly notable for the expertly shot night scenes. Payday is a pleasant recollection of Chaplin's carefree early days of slapstick shorts, on the eve of his most prestigious years.